joining me. I'm very thankful to speak with Black Braid. Would you mind giving yourself an introduction for listeners?
My name is John. The Black Braid is my solo project. As far as Black Braid goes, I actually took a Mohawk name for it, Sgah'gahsowáh, which is the witch hawk. So I know that's like a bit confusing. No one knows what to call me, but you can call me anything. I feel a little bit weird asking people to call me that when I'm like not doing Black Braid things. So it's a solo project. I started writing these songs maybe a little bit over a year ago. Just put out those first two songs in the last month or two, and it's really taken form. Album coming sooner rather than later, hopefully.
Whereabouts are you kind of like based out of?
So right now I'm in New York. I've pretty much lived in New York my whole life. I'm like a country boy, I would say. I was born and raised in the country. I live in the country now, so I'm upstate in the Adirondack Mountains is what I always tell people that no one knows where it is. We're probably about 4 or 5 hours north of New York City and like only maybe 2 from Montreal. So it's actually a little closer to Canada than like New York City, but it's still technically New York. But yeah, I grew up maybe, I don't know, 30, 40 miles from here. And I love this area since I was a kid. You know, I've been coming here. Like I learned to fish and camp and hunt and everything up here in these mountains. And kind of my whole adult life was always kind of a dream, a goal of mine to live here. So me and my wife bought a house over here in 2019 and never looked back. And that's where I am now.
Haven't been out there. I've been to New York, I think when my sister was in the military, but that was when I was a kid, but I haven't really made my way there. But yeah, it sounds awesome. I mean, I love the mountains and forests. What tribal community is the local area?
So that's really interesting. It's kind of like a mix here. We have a really unique history, the Adirondacks, as opposed to the rest of the country, because it was just settled in like a very different way. And there wasn't, there were still skirmishes and stuff, but there wasn't like major wars like there were in a lot of the other places. And if you look at like European, like white scholarly findings or whatever, I think like the official story is like they weren't Native Americans in the Adirondacks is what they say, because there's pretty much like no permanent residence here. Is also what they say. I would beg to differ, but there's no like archaeological evidence of it. So pretty much what these mountains were believed to be. Well, just to give you some background on the mountains, it's this huge mountain range. I think we have like, I don't even know. I think there's like 50,000 square miles or something in them, with like 46 high peaks, and it's a big mountain range. You wouldn't think something like that exists on the East Coast, but it does. Really harsh winters and harsh summers too, and just like a brutal climate to live in. So traditionally it was like Haudenosaunee territory. Specifically, like there was a lot of Mohawk and Algonquin in this area. And for like hundreds of years, it was used more just as like ancestral hunting ground. So people would come here for, just like the summers, like they'd come here in the spring and leave at the end of the fall, pretty much. The winters were like too harsh for people to really want to like build communities here year round. So when you look at like the indigenous history of this area, there's a lot of like hunting camps and like little trapping camps and stuff like that. But like you don't see, like there's no pueblos or even like longhouses. Like, longhouses were a big Haudenosaunee thing, but you don't see them really in the Adirondacks, just because there's places, 30 miles outside of the Adirondacks where they don't get hammered with so much snow, and it's just so much easier to survive. So this area that I'm in has always been kind of wild and more of like a hunting ground where people come and go. And there is like little hunting camps and communities and stuff that have been up here, but it's still like very similar. And even like in the early 1900s, when people started settling this area, like white colonists and stuff, there's a lot of Dutch around here and and whatever. But anyway, there was even like not much conflict back then. It was so hard to survive here up until the turn of the century. And like, it was kind of like everyone for themselves, and people didn't even have time to fight over territory because everyone was so concerned with just surviving the winters. So even when people started moving into here in like the early 1900s and stuff, like white settlers, like there was like skirmishes and stuff, like the Battle of Lake George and stuff. But like, there was kind of like this every man for himself atmosphere that still exists, where like there was almost like a Cold War where like the Indians wouldn't bother the settlers and the settlers wouldn't bother the Indians, and like they'd come together and trade and shit when times were hard because they couldn't really survive without each other's help at times. It was kind of, more so the settlers needed our help. But anyway, it's kind of a crazy place because there's this super bloody history in most of the country. And like here, it's still relatively unknown, and it's kind of like the Wild West. Like there's no documented history, and it's really like word of mouth, like from both like old settler families that have been here since the 1800s, and then like old Iroquois families that have also been up here. So yeah, it's a really interesting place to live. Probably like 90% of the indigenous history of the Adirondacks is still undocumented.
Wow. No, that's cool. Thanks for giving us that history of the area where you're at. That's really cool. Like, I have to admit, I'm not too familiar with that part of the country. I mean, kind of I'm similar. I kind of born and raised in the Southwest and got a chance to go different places, but cool to hear like a history of your area.
The park is kind of situated like in between Albany, New York, and Montreal up in Quebec. As far as like the tribal history of the area, like a lot of the Mohawk and the Iroquois and stuff would come up from the south, like from the Albany area to hunt. And then a lot of the Algonquin would come down from the north, like out of Quebec to hunt. So they'd kind of converge in the middle. And then they would have standoffs with each other too. And it wasn't always peaceful. So it was kind of just like this hunting ground where it's like everyone for themselves is how it was here pretty much up until maybe 50 years ago, when they started making roads and cars and stuff.
You mentioned you grew up there. Did you ever get a chance to like live other places outside of that upstate New York area?
I did. So I grew up just maybe like half an hour outside of the Adirondack Mountains I live in now, and like a little more lowlands south of here. So I grew up in like farm country. Like there's just dairy farms everywhere in the town I grew up, dairy and corn, and it's like your stereotypical farm town. But we would come up here, in the winters and stuff, and they're in the summers to camp and stuff. And so I grew up a little south of here, and then I traveled a lot when I was younger. I moved out like immediately. I thought I didn't really want to be in the country, just because like growing up in the 90s in the country is like, if anyone did that, how boring it is, and like everyone wants to get out. So as soon as I turned 17 and got out of high school, I left and I moved to Philly, and I lived there for a year, and then I traveled around the country a bit. And after a few years, I came to the realization that I really don't like cities, and I thought I was running from the country, but in reality, all I wanted to do was get back to it. So when I was maybe, 29, I think, we bought this house. I was 29 or 30. I'm 32 now. So me and my wife, we started looking for property up here. She grew up in Vermont, also in the country, and like we met living in a city. So it was a similar situation where we were both like just really sick of the asphalt and the grind, and we decided to get out of there. And I've been in the country again since 2 years or something now, 2 or 3 years, and I haven't looked back.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I can kind of relate. I was living in Phoenix, Arizona for a while, and just the traffic for me was just brutal, taking like an hour just to get somewhere, and the heat for me was just too much. But I grew up in northern Arizona, and the weather is much nicer. With growing up in in a country setting, like how did you get started playing music?
Let's see. I guess like I've been playing guitar most of my life. I'd probably be a lot better than I am considering I've been playing it for like 20 years now or something. But the guitar, I'm a guitarist at heart. I do all this instrumentation, but it really always, most of these songs always start with like a guitar bass for me. My dad played a little bit of guitar when I was growing up, and he had one, but he was never great, just messing around with like chords and folk and stuff. And he let me mess around with that when, I don't know, I probably was like 8 or 10 years old the first time I started playing it. And then by the time I was like 12 or 13, I was good enough where he bought me like a little, like, $100, for those like a little Electric Johnson starter kits or whatever. And, that was pretty much it. Like, I loved it from the second I picked it up, I guess. So
Nice. Yeah. And then, now you're playing in like Black Braid, but what was your progression towards like playing the style of music you play?
So I've always loved metal. I mean, and since I was in middle school, I guess is like around the time I discovered it. I remember seeing like Opeth was like I saw Opeth in like 2002 or 3 or something. I was like 13 or 14. And that was like one of the first like extreme kind of black bands I saw. And I was like, holy shit, they really turned me on to that whole style of music. They were playing with Devil Driver and like more hardcore stuff. Albany is like a really big hardcore area, and that was the closest city to me. So we would go to Albany for shows when I was young, and I actually went there to see Devil Driver and had no idea who Opeth was, and I was like blown away. They were so much better. And that was like my introduction to black metal.
That's cool.
And after that I was hooked. Like I was listening to Gorgoroth and like anything I could find at that time. It was a lot harder to find music back then, but as far as like my progression, like from that, I must have been maybe 13 or 14 when I started getting into those bands. And as soon as I got into them, I was already playing guitar. So like, it was just natural for me to be like, holy shit, I got to learn how to play this on guitar. This stuff is amazing. So I really started dabbling in all forms of metal back then. I grew up like there was a really big hardcore and metalcore scene in like a pop punk band. There was a pretty big pop punk scene when I was a teen. Like, I guess I wasn't a teen, I guess it was like early 20s. But when I was doing that stuff, like I was also like young and kind of dumb and partying, and it was fun and we were making good music, but like I didn't really care. I just wanted to play shows and have a good time. And I wasn't writing much. Like I'd write solos and harmonies and stuff, but like 3/4 of the writing was done by the rest of the band, and I'd just go in there and shred and leave. And like I really love playing shows and kind of being part of the scene, but I was content not writing at that point. So I think it wasn't till like my mid-20s when I really like started calming down and was kind of like less infatuated with the idea of touring and playing shows. And like sometime around that time, I started writing my own music, and I wrote a lot of shitty things for a while and kind of just threw them out. And then Black Braid really started when the pandemic hit. 2020 there, that spring of 2020, when we were all locked up and no one could go anywhere. And, there was a lot of crazy shit going on in the world then too, especially in the US. There's a lot of protests and all that George Floyd stuff was happening. And I honestly can't even remember what was going on in Indian country, but there was a lot going on everywhere, and I was so angry. And that's when I started writing those Black Braid songs. Barefoot Ghost Dance was my first Black Braid song, and I was like really angry when I wrote that, and it came out so good. I didn't think it was ever going to be a band, and I was like, well, this song's great. And I wrote River right after that. I actually decided to release those two first because they were the two first songs. And once they were both done and they were both like really solid, I was like, I guess I should make a band. Like I don't want to not release these. I'm actually like proud of these songs for once, and I don't want to throw them away. So
on those early demos, did you do all the instruments, or did you have someone like step in for any sessions?
you mean for Black Braid, like when I was
the barefoot and the
Black Braid
the river, the river of time flows, those early versions that you recorded?
Yes. So pretty much like the way I do that and record those songs, it's pretty much how my formula for everything. I don't stray too much. Is I'm pretty bad. I hate to admit it because it's so easy these days and accessible, but I'm like really bad at demoing out my own stuff and self-recording stuff, and like I can do it, but my setup just kind of sucks, and I don't want to put in the time to. I'm a really busy dude, and I have a lot going on all the time. I don't really want to put in the time to learn it, so I tend to really not demo anything. Like I have a pretty gotta just like get up and go style when it comes to that stuff. Like I just write the lyrics at home. I loop the guitars usually with like a pedal, and I'll just write lyrics like that over the loop, and I write the drums completely in my head, and then like when I go in the studio I just start tracking, and it's usually like 1 to 2 days from when I start tracking to like when the drums are done, and then I start tracking the rest. So it's I guess I didn't bring anyone else in or anything. I don't do my own drums. My buddy, his name is Neil Schneider. He produced me, and I recorded this whole album in his bedroom, actually. He's a great dude, but he also is an amazing drummer. I was going to do the drums myself, but he's way better than me, and he offered to do them. So I kind of just gave him an idea of what I wanted and wrote them for me, and then we went back and forth to like perfect them. But so yeah, he did the drums, but other than that, nothing else. I didn't really even demo anything. I kind of just like went to him with this stuff when I felt it was ready, and it was like, let's knock out this song,
Did you have the intention of like writing the full album, or did it kind of just happen like you wrote one song after the other?
I never had the intention until those 2 songs were done. Like the 2 songs that are out right now, River and Ghost Dance, both kind of happened like very organically. Like I said, Ghost Dance was written like at the beginning of the pandemic, and I was dealing with a lot of baggage with the history of our country, and I'm sure I don't have to explain to you what that was about, but it's a very heavy song, so like it kind of just poured out of me. Like I didn't have to think about writing it too much. And then the same thing with River, like it really just started as a few riffs that I really liked, and then one day I was just like, I think I know the lyric, like the lyrics kind of just came to me. Like, it's like, hey, I think I know what this song's about now. Like, and I sat down in like half an hour, the lyrics were done, and I'm like, all right, I guess this is a full song now. But yeah, those 2 were both kind of caught me by surprise, and I hadn't really planned anything. But once I got those 2 done, I was like, I'm so proud of both these songs. Like, I should just, I should finish it, like, I can't release 2 songs and then never do anything again. So I guess I just start working towards an album, like, because I want to share these, but I got nothing else. So that was kind of how it came about, I guess.
Nice. Yeah. As far as like the theme of the lyrics, how does like your cultural background play into like the lyrics that go into your songs?
I would say it is most of it, really. Like there's not much I write about that wouldn't be like culturally relevant to me. I'd say a lot of it is like maybe 3/4 of it is nature. I have a really strong connection with nature, and that was kind of one of the things that made me want to start Black Braid as like a full-fledged project too, was something that I've been realizing. Like just to give you a little more background on me, like I grew up in the country, and I guess like it never occurred to me that I live like what you would call a traditional life, but I guess I do. it's kind of just always been like how life is to me, like I don't think about it like I'm outside all the time, and I hike and like I trap. I do a lot of traditional stuff. Like I do European mounts. I do taxidermy. I clean bones and hides, and I tan. So I do all this stuff. I tan pelts. And one day my wife was like, well, it was something she said with like just a conglomeration of things also, but I started realizing that I guess like it's not a lot of people don't have that connection, and a lot of people don't have the ability to grow up like really close to nature, and they can't like look at an oak tree or a maple and tell you the difference between them, and just things like that. And when I realized that it's really kind of a special thing that we get to have living in such a close relationship with nature, it's like I kind of want to work that into Black Braid, because even like I had been doing stupid social media stuff and Instagram just for fun for years before, but like I'd noticed on there like everyone always loves when I post shit about nature and like interesting facts and stuff, and I guess I have a lot of knowledge to share, and I didn't really realize till recently how much people really want to see that, much other people's lives are lacking in those things. So that's like a really big priority for me with Black Braid, is to kind of help people feel like they can connect with nature through my music in the ways that I do, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, just the hearing like the first two songs, especially the River of Time Flows track, there's sound of like water, running water, like a stream, lyrical references to just appreciation for nature.
Yeah, that song actually, with that song too, actually, I don't know if you probably saw the lyric video with all the running melt water and stuff there, but that's not. But yeah, that was actually, I took all that video myself. It's taken right around the corner from my house, and that's the Sgah'gahsowáh River. And Sgah'gahsowáh is actually the title of another song on my album there. There is very special to me, but yeah, I just thought it was fitting. Like, I don't think a lot of people realize that I wrote that song about that exact river, and then I was able to go take that footage myself. So the lyric video and everything about it is very personal to me. It's not like stock footage or anything. Like the river in that video is what that song is about.
Yeah, I saw that video. It's very well done. Like, I think pretty much everything I've seen that's been put out under Black Braid has just been really just a high quality. I mean, like as far as like the sound production, the artwork, the videos. I'm just kind of like really blown away by how everything looks, everything that's been put out so far.
Thank you. That means a lot.
And
I'm trying.
Yeah, and the music too. I mean, honestly, I'm not a musician myself. I kind of think of myself as just like an enthusiast or a connoisseur of this stuff. But I mean, when I first heard it, I was just blown away. It just, it reminded me of a lot of like bands from like Sweden, like Sgah'gahsowáh, Dark Funeral, Watain, like all that intent, all that aggression, but with a lot of melody. Like I really, really dig it.
Yeah, that's really awesome for you to say, because it's kind of what I'm going for. Like, I just felt with Black Braid, like there's so many unique black metal sounds out there now, and there's so many things I love, and so many bands that do it great. Like I could list dozens of them right now, from new American bands to like Uada and Wolves in the Throne Room, to classic bands like that, like Mayhem and Dark Throne and Burzum and stuff. So I guess like with it, I just there's some bands that are doing it pretty good, but like I wanted to take it a step further and kind of focus on like there's no bands really focusing on American history and American, the American wilderness and spiritualism, which has always been something that fascinates me, that also sound this way. Like it seems to be like one or the other, like there's bands out there like Wolves in the Throne Room and stuff that are very Cascadian black metal, and they're great, but like those bands don't have the edge that like someone like Gorgoroth would, or Dark Funeral. So like it was kind of in my mind, and I'm still striving to do it. You know, it's not like I'm done, but I would like to kind of mesh those seamlessly and be able to be like that brutal and that punishing, but still really have a really deep connection to nature in history. And it's just a fine line I'm trying to walk, I guess. It's a little bit of everything.
And I got a chance to listen to the whole album, and even the acoustic stuff in between. Like I honestly could just listen to like do nothing but acoustic like material that you put out. It's really good. It's really relaxing. It's kind of like gives the listener a break from kind of the intensity. So I really hope that there's more of that in the future. I really enjoy those acoustic pieces that you put together.
Oh, absolutely. I do plan on doing a lot more of that. The next album, I'm already like a little bit of the ways into it. The second album, even though the first one's not out. I know everyone hearing this is like, the first one's not out yet, but it has been done. There's just vinyl pressing complications and whatnot. But when it comes to the second one, like one of my big focuses is, I guess like to paraphrase, like the first one is really like an introduction to Black Braid, and everything that people like on the first one, I think they'll hear more of on the second one. I want it to be longer. I want there to be a lot more folk influence and a lot more acoustic. There's definitely going to be more traditional instruments. I did put a few in this one, but they're like pretty buried. Like one of the constant comments I get on Barefoot Ghost Dance on YouTube and stuff is like, oh, like this is great, but I don't see what's native about it because I'm not, like blowing my eagle bone whistle. But there is actually like I put like a jawbone rattle that I made myself in there in the skin drum, but they're like very quiet. You wouldn't know. And that was also kind of my intention with this first album. Like I kind of wanted to prove to myself that I could make this kind of metal and be very subtle about it. And like, I didn't really want to rely on all these tropes, like, the flute and all these other great native instruments that I do definitely am plan on incorporating a lot more on the second album because I play them and I love them. But with the first one, it was kind of just like, I think I need to get this more traditional metal sound out of my system and also prove to myself that I can be successful without adding all this unique shit. Like I can just make a solid metal album.
And so far you've been putting everything out yourself. I understand you're kind of getting attention from a lot of like heavy music labels. How has that experience been?
It's all been really surreal, honestly. Like I told you earlier in the interview, I grew up in like this metalcore scene. I don't know if you guys have had a big metalcore scene out there in like early 2000s. I'm talking about for the most part, or mid 2000s. But we were constantly playing. Like I played with a lot of bands like oh man, these are so cringy to even talk about on a black metal podcast. But stuff like, like The Devil Wears Prada and Miss May I and Every Time I Die is also from New York. They're not far from us, so we were playing them a lot. But I grew up kind of in that scene, and it's just so surreal to me because when I was there, everyone wanted to get signed and like sell their left testicle to get on fucking Rise Records or something. And there was 1,000 bands and every show was packed and like everyone was fighting for their life to get signed all the time. And I was in a few of these bands and I didn't really care because like I told you before, like I was kind of just having fun and being a young, stupid kid. And like, I wasn't doing much of the writing. Like it was really more about the experience for me and just being young and careless than making meaningful music, But at the same time, like I was in a couple bands where like I saw these guys around me like bending over backwards to get signed by anyone. And we would try so fucking hard and pour so much money and time into these albums and we still wouldn't get signed. And then like now I'm here in Black Braid and like I swore to myself I was going to sell for release and not even entertain label offers. And like now they're like, I get more every week than I ever got in my entire life in any of those bands. It's really surreal. And I also feel I'm a little guilty because like there's so many small and mid-sized labels that have made me great offers and are really great people and love my music. And like, I can tell they genuinely want to support me, but I've had to turn them down because a small label wouldn't really help me at all. Like I'm so self-sufficient. Like I put all this stuff out already and like I was already prepared to do a small release. So like I don't really need a small label at that point. I would rather just do it myself. But it is kind of weird because I didn't want a big label, but now I've garnered so much attention that I'm kind of being forced to look at them for the distribution aspect. Really, I have a lot of fans outside of the US, which I didn't bank on happening, like a shit ton. And I can't really, I can't do a pre-order of 1,000 records and ship 500 across the world. Like it's just gotten too big for me to handle as a self-release. I wish it hadn't. I mean, it's like a blessing and a curse at the same time. But yeah, I'm looking at bigger distributors now because I don't think I can handle that vinyl release by myself at this point.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, that's really cool though. I mean, like, yeah, I just, I'm a big fan and nerd of all this stuff. Well, you mentioned Devil Wears Prada. Yeah, I was always a fan of the Zombie EP. I dig that, and Every Time I Die. But I just want to mention that. But yeah, I'm just a big fan of all this.
Yeah, I love that stuff.
How close have you decided on like going with a label? Are you still kind of working that out?
I pretty much made my decision, but I haven't signed my life away yet, So okay. I guess I probably shouldn't talk about it publicly until it's official. But we can talk about it after the recording if you want.
Oh yeah,
I don't care. I'll tell you what's going on.
I'd love to hear that. Yeah.
All I'm really worried about is distribution. Like I don't care about making money. If I cared about making money, I wouldn't let them have it, Mm-hmm. But at this point, there's so many people that want the album that I never thought would care or know about it. And I just want to be able to get these people the album, if you want a physical release and you're in Bangladesh or you're in China or, you're in Denmark, like I want you to be able to get it. I can't do that on that level now without finding a label. So
cool. And then I wanted to ask about the artwork. The digital release for The River of Time Flows. It has a digital artwork. I understand that's going to be the cover of the album.
Yeah. I'm really happy with that artwork. I love it a lot.
Yeah. How did that come about as far as choosing the artist and going with the specific image?
Well, that was done by this guy, Adrian Baxter, who's done like a good amount of up and coming bands in the past couple of years, especially in like the extreme metal scene. Like last year he did Paradise Lost, which ended up being really big for him. And he's done some merch for like Bell Witch and Shamash. And I actually found him because there's this band. It's also a US band. They're from the South somewhere. I want to say like the Carolinas, but I really don't know. Cloak. They do rock and roll. Yeah, and they're really good. Like I love that band. But he did the artwork for their first album, To Venomous Depths. And that's how I found him. And like I've been following him ever since they put that album out. And I just love his style. So when I was looking at album art, like I actually had this completely different idea of what I wanted for the cover. Which like spoiler alert, you can publish this if you want. I think it's safe to say. But so I had this completely different idea for what I wanted for the album art. And now it's going to be a long sleeve that's going to be released Friday through a friend of mine, Labyrinth Tower, who does a bunch of merch. And he's going to do Friday. You'll see a pre-order go up for it and stuff. But yeah, long story short, I had this idea starting out where the album cover was actually all going to be based around River of Time. And there's this feral wolf spirit that I talk about in that song. That's kind of like a reoccurring thing I talk about a lot on the album. She's a major muse for me, and I write a lot of songs about her. So anyway, my original idea was to have this scene with the wolf spirit in like the river, and the stars flowing into the river, flowing into the land, and kind of everything meshing together and being eternal. That's kind of interchangeable. That's kind of what the song's about. I went around with that design for close to a month probably when I was looking for artists, and like I just couldn't find someone to do it that I thought was going to do it how I wanted it. I don't know, like one day I just woke up and was like, I don't want that anymore. Like I want Adrian Baxter. It just like kind of came to me. And I was like, I'm going to completely change my idea for the album art. I'm going to throw that idea out and I'm going to make it a t-shirt or something. And I'm just going to hit up Adrian Baxter. And what I did with him was I pretty much I sent him all the lyrics, and I sent him the lyrics in the album. And I sent him a list of like 20 archetypes that, like subjects that I write on in the album. And I was like, these are all like really important things to me, and these subjects recur in all the songs. And, you know, I don't really know what I want for an album art, but I want something in your style with all these elements worked into it. And then I kind of just let him do his thing, and he killed it. So, and it seems to be like, in my mind anyway, it's exactly what I wanted. Like when I look at it, it's a perfect representation of the album to me. So I'm very happy.
Yeah, that's going to look sick on a vinyl jacket, like cover. That's going to be really, really badass.
We're going to do, I do have plans to do like a really extensive merch line with all those designs that he gave me. And I'm going to do like a long sleeve and a hoodie and a few t-shirts and some other stuff. And that's going to be like closer to the album release, but I'm really excited for all that merch because that art is amazing.
Yeah. How close are you with the timeline of the album being released?
Honestly, I hate to say it. I want to say 9 or 10 months. So full disclosure, I'm sure you're aware, but I don't know how many of your listeners are of like the shit show that is the vinyl market right now.
Oh yeah. I'm a vinyl junkie. I got stuff I pre-ordered last year, still waiting. Yeah.
Yeah. So pretty much like worldwide, the vinyl market is backed up about 10 months. I want to say like Ghost Dance, my first single there, almost went viral when I put it on Black Metal Promotion. Like it's up to like, it's only been on there 2 weeks, and like it's in the 100,000 views now. It's like at 125 or something, which is surreal. But anyway, like up until I garnered all that attention, I was really planning on doing the self-release. And that's kind of like what was the breaking point when all these people started flowing in wanting the vinyl. But yeah, I decided I could never really, like, I can't really afford to do more than like a 300 unit release myself, which was my idea and seemed really great when I started this album. But now a lot more than 300 people want the vinyl. And I don't want to make people wait, especially with all those complications. Like if I do a run of 300 and it sells out in a week, like it's going to be a double another 9 months for me to do the next run, you know, because I'm small and I don't have that much money, and I'm going to have to put in another run. So, and there's all these international people that want it. So at this point, I'd rather just, I don't care about losing money. I just want to get a label that can get it to everyone that wants it, because that's really all that matters in my mind. And that's all that should, you know, these people want to hear the music, they want to buy it, they should be able to. If I don't get all the money for it, I don't really give a shit.
Yeah, I can't wait. Yeah, it'll honestly, a year from now will be closer than you think. I feel like the last like 5 years for me just flew by. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I'm gonna keep working on shit too. Like I'm kind of just like looking at it as like a blessing. Like you know, like with me signing with someone, the second album was always in the plans, but now it's kind of mandatory. So it's kind of like, again, I say this all the time, it's like a blessing and a curse, because I haven't put in the vinyl order. Like, I could have ordered a week ago and done a self-release, but I didn't, because I'm holding out to get this label release finalized, which I think will be a lot better for everyone. But yeah, in a way, like, the vinyl being pushed so far out also helps me, because I don't write fast by any means, and I don't want any pressure on me to finish the second album. So, like, it's kind of like a 9-month head start in my mind is how I'm looking at it. Like, hey, this album is done, but I'm not going to be able to show it publicly for almost a year. So, like, it's almost a year extra time I have to kind of solidify the second album before I really, before it gets put to the grind and I have to think about it more. And it kind of just frees up time for me. So I like taking my time. And I'm not too upset about it.
Yeah. Heck yeah. I mean, there's always like, I don't know how you're planning to release music, but there's always like splits and EPs too that, can kind of take the place in between those, the first and second album.
That, and, I do have like merch, and I want to do another video. Yeah, I wanted to do another video and another single, maybe close to the end of the summer, maybe, to like tie it over. And then in the fall, I'll drop that merch line. And shortly after that, the album will come out, I think. I want to make sure, I don't want any stagnant periods. I'm going to try to keep releasing stuff and give people stuff to listen to periodically, depending on how long the album takes to come out. Maybe I'll add some more stuff, or maybe I'll even share a single from the new album before the first one comes out. Who knows? It's all up in the air, but I don't want people to feel like there's not more Black Braid coming just because it's been a few weeks, because there's definitely a lot in the pipeline.
Yeah, can't wait. Those are pretty much like all the questions I sent to you. But do you have any closing remarks, or any anyone you want to recognize, or any music you want to recommend to listeners?
Yeah. I mean, as far as recognition goes, I gotta shout out my wife. I mean, she's just as much Black Braid as I am. Like, I write the music and she pretty much does everything else. She's helped me make the videos, and she runs my web store and my merch, and she made the lyric video. She's designed my merch. She designed the logo. She's done so much shit for me, and she's amazing. And she doesn't like to do design that much, but she does take on design. She does like video stuff here and there. So if anyone else is looking for lyric video, she might be up for it. Don't hesitate to hit me up if you liked the Little River one. But anyway, her, obviously Neil Schneider. I have to shout him out. He's one of my best friends, and he's amazing. And he recorded the entire album for me and did the drums. Man, I wish I had something to plug him. I think he just calls himself Neil Schneider Recordings. I should have really became more prepared. But yeah, look him up. He's amazing. He does mixing and mastering too. If you can't travel to record with him, you can always send your crap to him for master. If you like the master he did for me, he can definitely do it for you. But other than that, Adirondack Black Mass is another awesome dude that I wanted to give a shout out to, because he's a guy who runs a tiny distribution company right near me, and I don't know him very well, but he has experience with a lot of distribution things, and he's kind of like let me pick his brain for free, and has been a major help to me. Same with you guys, and Res Metal Podcast and the Metal Cave Zine. No one has been as accepting as you guys, and you guys have like pretty much from day one been trying to help me get my shit out there, and it's been awesome. So I guess that's all I gotta thank. As far as bands go, I could I don't know really. I probably can't recommend much that people don't already know. As far as like native bands, I really love lately I've been listening to a lot of Affair Knock. I really love Affair Knock's his new album's cool. Like, I say him. I think he's a solo guy. I don't know. His new album's cool, but I'm like a huge fan of the Green Enchanted Forest of the Druid Wizard or something. That album is so good. Pan American Native Front. He's awesome. Isatahi, Ajayaboa. Nachachwin has a new album coming out very soon. I'm very excited for that. Yeah, I mean, I wish I could. I wish I could write music like that guy. But as far as native bands, that's probably it. I mean, not it, but that's what's been on my playlist in the last week anyway.
Oh, that's cool. Those are some cool recommendations. Everyone should check out. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of like Bandcamp. I'm always perusing Bandcamp on my downtime, but stuff I've been listening to, I don't know. They're a Season of Mist band called Night. Have you heard of Night? Nite?
Oh, I have. I was listening yesterday. It's like old, like heavy metal, like traditional, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Clean vocals and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love stuff like that. I really love the clean metal. Those guys are great. Who was I listening to today that kind of reminded me of that? Unto Others. You ever listen to them?
Oh yeah, I love them.
Yeah, I listen to everything. I love stuff like that. You got to add some clean vocals now and then, you know?
Yeah, there was one I heard. I follow a lot of bands, and the band Iris, they're like on Nuclear Blast. They were pushing one band a lot, and I just had to check it out. It's called Hangman's Chair.
Oh, I haven't heard of that.
It's if you like Unto Others, you'll dig this. It's like if Unto Others was a doom metal band. This is kind of how I would describe them.
Yeah, I'm always looking for like clean vocals is something that I really love, and they're getting less and less common in extreme metal. But bands that can pull it off like that, like like Night and Unto Others, and man, I love that stuff. I'll definitely check it out. Hangman's Chair.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. I've been wanting to get the physical album, but I haven't pulled the trigger yet. But I plan on doing it. It's that good. Usually, if I search out for the physical, it's usually like a sign that this is really good. Because normally I just stream stuff or I just get a digital download. But if I really do get the physical copy, if I'm really supporting it.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. I'm always looking for good heavy metal. So
cool. All right. Well, that's about it. Let's see. But yeah, thanks again. Thank you so much for doing this.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was an honor, man. Anytime. I'll come back whenever you want.
Awesome.
Maybe after the next album or something.
Cool. Yeah, I would love that.
That was my talk with John, or Sgah'gahsowáh of Black Braid. Really thankful that he took the time to talk with me last week. Be sure to follow Black Braid on Instagram. Also, check out the Black Braid website at blackbraid.us for more announcements and merch. And there's a pre-order for the new long sleeve design at labyrinthtower.net. It's really cool to hear that the design on that shirt was meant for the album art. Also, just be sure to stream Black Braid on all the popular streaming sites. There's 2 singles out, Barefoot Ghost Dance on Blood-Soaked Soil and The River of Time Flows Through Me. I'm going to go ahead and play one of the tracks, the latest one, The River of Time Flows Through Me now. And after that, it'll be the end of the podcast. So thanks for listening, and talk to you next week. All right. Yeah, going it.